Well, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it greatly. I can't remember the last time I was here. I know I was here before, but I can't remember it. But it's been too long, in my opinion. I'm happy to come, whenever you'd like. But thank you very much for having me. Thanks for the meal. Thanks for all of your service. I do have an idea for service, but we can talk about that at the end. Just so you know. So I'm gonna try to talk for like 5 minutes, very brief, and then leave it open for questions, because I think that pretty much you have a lot of things that you'd like to know. So, or you have a question about what's happening in town, since there's never a shortage of things going on. I consider Canaan to probably be the busiest small town in America, to be perfectly honest with you, bar none. I have friends in other places, friends with 160 public works directors, and I ask them, does this happen in your town? No. Does that happen in your town? No. Does that happen in your So in the end, it's every once in a while I think about going on the other side where the grass will be greener. But no, I love the town. I love what I do. I love the people I work with, and I love the people I work for. So for me, it's a good mix, and I'm very happy that I landed here 24 years ago or so. So give you a very quick shot, just because I'll run through a couple of things we did last year that I'm very happy with. This is a stretch of sidewalk that goes from Heritage Hill to Parade Hill. Had been in 3 years in the making, okay? 1 year in planning, 2 years with a state permit, okay? To be perfectly honest with you. And the construction was the easiest part of it. Every resident was excellent. And now we have a continuous walk all the way to Parade Hill, which then combines with the Green Link through the Nature Center up to Irwin and then back around. So we have that whole area of the Green Link completed. And then this year, I just received the bids this morning for a stretch of sidewalk on Old Stanford Road from Park to Bristow, which includes a pull-off. So that'll be done before Bristow's 100th anniversary, which is in September. Hopefully everybody can make it. September 8th, I believe it is the anniversary. So that will be done. And then the selectmen get on Tuesday the last phase of the Bristow improvements. So we had a 5-year improvement plan for them. This last phase, phase 4, Keith and his crew were instrumental in developing the entire plan. So this will help with the last little bit of trail work, and then it actually includes a flexi-paved walk from Mead Park Lodge, where the driveway is in the back, all the way to the entrance of Bristow up above, and then behind the baseball fields to a lower one that would be much more senior friendly, let's put it that way. It's actually ADA compliant, but then the moment you get into Bristow, that trail becomes no longer ADA compliant, but the trail itself to get to Bristow, you can get in. So that'll happen, same exact thing. That will coincide with the work. Interestingly enough, the contractor that won the Bristow work won the sidewalk work, so he wanted to pair them together, so he's gonna work on those all in one shot. So within the next couple of months, that entire project will be complete, which we're kind of happy about. And then as far as other areas, we finished the 9/11 Memorial this year. I don't know if you had a chance to go over there and look at that. It's absolutely beautiful. Thankfully to the Beautification League, they donated all the benches, they donated the plantings, and then they donated the labor along with our staff to be able to plant that whole embankment. And then this coming summer, we will repave the parking lot at the train station. We wanted to do it last year, and in the States, while they were shut down, we wanted to do it while they were shut down, and they said, no, you can't do it while we're shut down. Don't really understand that. Still trying to figure that out. We wanted to paint the building as well, told we couldn't paint the building while it was shut down either, so now we actually have to paint the building and hire a groundman and a flagman to be there all day because we're working close to the tracks. So I go figure. I don't understand it, but at the same token, we continue to try. And then this one I'm probably most proud of, because this is the one on Richmond Hill. Okay, so this was previous look at Richmond Hill, and this is a post look heading in the opposite direction, looking up past the crossing. And then we have a very happy, this was on day one of when it was open end to end. This gentleman and his son had been waiting, patiently for it to finish. This project started in 2019. Actually a little bit before that, because I actually started in 2018. I had the plans fully developed by 2019. And then we sought LOTSIP grant, Local Transportation Capital Improvement Grant, with the state for $680,000 to construct this. And then 4 years later, we were told that, well, it only takes about 4 years to get through our permitting process. You should be thankful if you get through it. And we weren't able to complete the permitting process. We had 6 months left to go, and then the state decided they were gonna close the railway. And then they said, the only way you're gonna get this done is if you do it now while it's closed. And thankfully, we had 2 welcome partners from DOT Rails and Metro North Rail that came down, met us, understood the situation, and said, we will take care of our work. They had originally quoted us $75,000 for the work. When we finally got done, they said it was 1.5 million. They did all the work themselves. I don't think it cost them 1.5 million, but they were able to do that during the shutdown, and we were able to do the sidewalk as well. And then, lo and behold, the state told us it was gonna be $680,000 for the grant and how much it was gonna cost based upon their numbers. Our contractor came in at $325,000. So it was a win all around. Town had to pay for the 3.25, but we got a sidewalk in. But this is the dilemma that we live in as far as it goes, you know, where I'm told 4 years for permitting is a good number. I have a hard time with. I try to tell them that that's 2 terms for my selectman. And I can't live for 2 terms for my selectman. I can only live 1 year, right? Because in essence, they get, you know, it's 1 year. They get elected, they got a year to do things, and they get reelected. So I got 1 year to do something. I don't know how everybody else does it, but I got 1 year to do it. And if I don't do it in 1 year, I'm gonna have to look for another job. So the it is what it is, right? But we are in budget season, so I'll tell you where we are. Okay, so we're 8 divisions, 57 people. Okay, so it's administration and engineering, highway department, transfer station, sewer, parks, and tree service, right? And then we take care of all the utilities in town as far as utility poles and water service, stuff like that. And we coordinate with Aquarian and Eversource and what have you. I try to say that as far as public works goes, we touch your lives every day, all day, right? So you wake up in the morning, you use the facilities, you brush your teeth, wastewater treatment plant, right? So then you go downstairs, have breakfast, you have some garbage, hopefully you recycle more than you have garbage, have you some food compost, transfer station. Step outside your house, if you're gonna walk to work, walk to town, that's the administration and engineering side. You get in your car and drive, that's administration, engineering, and highway. And you come in, you gotta pay your taxes, hopefully you pay your taxes so my salary gets paid, town buildings. And then after that, you go to our parks, enjoy our parks, and it's the Parks Department. So anywhere in that whole realm where you are, the only thing that we don't do are the 4 walls and in at the school. So the schools are 4 walls and in, we're 4 walls and out. So after that, it's basically you have a little combination between us, you know, on this little bit of the grounds, but after that, in the school proper, that's us. So everywhere in town, we touch. Hopefully we do it a good job. Our budget right now is at 12.8 million. It was just over 13 million. When we started the process, it was $13,001,018. Now it's $12,856,018. I told my dad this number in the beginning. I said, Dad, I'm $13 million. And he said, what was your budget last year? I said, 12.5. He says, 3.5%. My dad's 83, right? I was like, wow, holy cow. You got 3.5%. Momentarily, immediately. I was like, oh, there you go. But we're at 2.3% overall. It is 7 cents on your tax dollar, just so you understand the whole ramification. So our whole tax burden, you take 7 cents of that dollar, and that's us for everything that we provide.
Can we get you to educate our kids to tax?
We can try that. We'll try that. I'll skip through a couple of things. Only like less than half of our operating is on our salaries, 48%, and it keeps going down every year. A couple of years ago, we were at 50%, 50 and change, and every single year it goes down based upon utilities, contractual, all the other things that are associated with driving us or driving our budget. Salaries are actually less than 50% of it. So the majority of it is everything else that's out there that we need to do. And then I'll give you a broad brush on capital. Our original capital ask this year was $28 million, which is 54% over last year. I understand that that's a big jump. Doesn't include the police department. We take the police department out of it because any big project, police department, town hall, would just skew the numbers. So that's kind of sitting off to the side. But then after negotiations, or I'll call it negotiations, we are down to 18 million. So we had an $8 million, $9 million cut for certain various projects that we had, and we're down to 3.42% year over year. The major drivers, so John will appreciate this, $3 million for road paving year over year was $2.5 million for 20 years. So we got $2.5 million per year starting in 2003. And this is the first year I actually had to increase the number. only because of inflation. The interesting thing is that the first ton of asphalt that we laid in 2003 cost us $50.50 a ton to lay down. Right, it's called haul and lay. They haul it, they lay it, you call it a day, you pay them by the ton. My most recent bid, $160 a ton. So in that 20-year time frame, prices have tripled or over tripled, and we were able to still maintain that $2.5 million while our pavement condition index, it's called our PCI, it's a grade of 0 to 100 on our roads, went from a 77 in 2003 to just below 90 now. So we are perfect at 90. We're around hovering between 89.5 to 90.5, and we'll stay there for forever. So that's kind of where you're at. So, and for us, the phone doesn't ring until the road drops below 80. And you can imagine in a 20-year lifespan, right, you want to have your average be at 90 because we're right in the middle of it, right? So at some point in time, right when she touches to 78, she's 20 years old at 78, and that's when the phone rings. And that's usually that year that we're paving the road, or a year or two close to it. And then the other drivers that we have are, we have a $5 million plant upgrade for our wastewater plant. Has to do with our UV system, ultraviolet disinfection system. It was state of the art back in 1998 when we installed it. Now it's pretty much commonplace throughout, but needs to be replaced because it's 24 years old. And that comes with a required $4.5 million per regulation upgrade to the system itself. But has to be done. Has zero to do with capacity, maintains the exact capacity that we have in the plant, but is our primary disinfection for the plant. If we don't have it, we can't operate, and we can't operate effectively. And interestingly enough, we didn't even realize this until we started looking at it. We are 5.5 miles from the sound, and there is a shell fishery right at the outlet of where we outlet. So if we were to have a problem, they would have to shut down the shell fishery for a time frame until we could manage the
Is that
problems we have.
Norwalk Harbor?
Yeah. Interestingly enough, we looked at, because we were looking at, what are the reasons why and what are the ramifications thereof if we don't necessarily meet permit, and that was it. And then the only other large project that we have out there are, those are the various cuts, we don't have to go through that, is Dunning Stadium. Actually, this got tabled for this year, but we have a large plan for Dunning Stadium itself to redo the stadium. We just did the donor wall, the entryway will be done this year. Then we're looking at the press box, concessions, and bathrooms, and then an entire look at the recirculation or circulation pattern inside the high school itself for safety and for compliance as far as accessibility goes, as far as trying to have access between the school, Dunning Stadium, the water tower, turf fields, tennis courts, track. All those areas have to be accessible for any individual, and they got to be safe to be able to cross. So this plan will take care of that. And then the only other driver that we have this year is we're looking to partner with the Athletic Foundation for a redo of Capo Field. So Capo Field will become a turf field in the end. To this footprint, it'll be not just for baseball, it can be used multi-purpose. The turf itself will be continuous throughout, so since it's one layer, you can play anything you want on it specifically for practices, and it would be fantastic. Since the turf height is very low, it's perfect for soccer and field hockey, which are the two that are lacking on our turf fields at present. So this is a $6.5 million project. We were asking for $2.5 million from the boards and the council. The Board of Finance cut us to $2 million, so it was a 2.5 and 4, comparatively speaking, from us and the Athletic Foundation, and now it's a 2, 4.5. I have to see if the Athletic Foundation can come up with the last $500,000. And then the thought is that we'll be going to construction sometime in June, July, with a thought for April, so that the kids can play on it. So that kind of wraps up everything that we have. If you ask me a question, I'll tell you anything we got going on. If you want to know about traffic calming, we'll tell you about traffic calming on Conrad Road, things like that, or if you've got
Carriage
other
Barn.
things. Carriage Barn. So Carriage Barn, we're partnering with the Carriage Barn. They got a grant for some work on their exterior and interior. Keith's actually working on that with us as well. So the Carriage Barn, we're going to be putting in a new ADA compliant patio, and then they'll have some outdoor lighting, some speakers, things of that nature that we're partnering with. And then we're going to redo the sidewalk going over to the leg gig up.
These new tables in the budget?
Yeah.
We can try that too, right? I'll have to ask John that question.
We're good?
Yeah. That was Teresa's induction.
There it is. Y'all set? Thanks, John.
I know that table was gonna fall on.
It's okay.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you so much.
we're gonna have to talk to Recreation about that.
That,
See if-
that project is funded and underway.
the Carriage Barn is funded and underway, yeah, and then that's gonna tie into the powerhouse, and there's a project for the powerhouse itself to expand the lobby, put in, use the potting shed for their offices, and then put in an ADA compliant bathroom for outdoor use, say if you're at the sledding hill, or if you're out on that portion of Waveny. And then the whole patio in the middle there will be redone, and the parking lot itself, so it's gonna be, that whole area gets a complete redo. And it should be absolutely beautiful when it's all done. The plans look fantastic, and the overall area, the site plan for it looks great. And once we can finalize the plan for the powerhouse, we're gonna look to do everything in one shot. So we'll be over there for quite a while. We just finished the service area. That was a work with the Conservancy. I don't know if you saw that out here where the dumpster area was, so we can put the dumpsters behind a wall. And then we put in that nice patio, which is now your lead down to the Everly Fountain, and then, you know, throughout the rest of the park. That came out very, very well. That was a partnership with the Conservancy itself, a 50-50 split. And that work came out really, really nice. We have plans to finish the stone walls on Lapham Road itself. I don't know if you read that, but the two ends, we're trying to finish that. And then we're gonna be repaving the Banco pool as well this year before the season opens. It's kind of, you know, where we're at. What do you guys?
Around the pool.
Paving around, yeah, the pool parking lot itself, and then the sidewalk leading up to it. We'll get the blacktop sidewalk out, put a granite curb and a concrete sidewalk. We only like that granite curb and concrete sidewalk next to travelway, right? I don't like to have a blacktop curb because you can mount the blacktop curb. The granite curb tends to bounce you back into traffic, which is we want to have. We save the pedestrian and have the cars stay in the lane. John, you had a question?
So, looking at the long term, I'm wondering what are the implications of continuing to change grass fields to turf? I know that we, when I began on the town council, we just had Dunning Stadium was pretty much turf, and then we added more turf at the high school track. We added several more fields. I think they only have a 10-year life, and so now we're considering adding more turf fields to Saks, and now I'm learning about the turf field at Capo Field, and we already did the other one at Bede Park. It occurs to me that the bill's gonna come due in 10 years to replace each field at, what, $2.5 million a piece?
No, well, thank you. First, you are right. So we started off with one turf field, was at Dunning, and then we added Water Tower 1 in about 2007, and then Water Tower 2, 3, you know, the half field, and then Mead and Mellick and Gamble are only just the inside, right? The outfield is grass, the interior isn't. But those are for smaller kids, right? So the majority of the work is inside the infield, right? So any baseball practice you can manage for 12 and unders just using the infield. So you don't necessarily need the outfield. So on a rainy day, you don't have to worry about the outfield itself. The bigger kids for Capo, every hit predominantly is going to wind up out of the infield, right? So you got the entire turf field's got to be done. But to your point, the overall maintenance every day is pretty much standard, right? So we have to broom it, we got to groom it, we have to go out there, and there's a special device that actually comes in and brushes it and then grooms it and then redistributes the crumb rubber, right? So it distributes it again. You might have to add some because you know the kids carry it home every day, right? So you've got it inside their bags. So you have to add a little bit to that, but that counters with the fact that I don't have to mow it, stripe it, you know, those kind of things. And the mowing and the striping takes a lot more time and effort than it does for the grooming. You know, so in essence, in that regard, that's a wash. Let's just say that's a wash, right? But you are right. In the end, every 10 years, there's what's called a Gmax factor, right? So you go out and test your turf fields and make sure you drop a ball on it and make sure that it rebounds to a certain height. That's called your Gmax factor. That's a safety protocol for the field itself, specifically for football, you know, for contact sports, soccer. But after about 10 years, 12 years, no matter what you do, even if you groom it every single day, that Gmax factor will eventually fail and you have to replace the turf. So re-skinning it, we re-skinned Dunning at the same time that we did the turf fields at the Water Tower. And that only costs about $650,000. So it's not, to construct it, much more expensive. To re-skin it, less so. But still expensive, but less so. Let's just say that. And to your point, yeah, you got about 10 to 12 years worth of life out of it. The Athletic Foundation does have a portion of their funds that actually go towards the replacement portion of it. They have some that goes towards new installation and some that goes towards, it's a 50-50 split that goes towards a bank account, so to speak, a reserve to help offset those costs, you know. But you are right, every 10 years, 12 years, we're gonna have to look to redo those turf fields again, wherever they are. And then that's a balance between playability, you know, where you want your kids to be able to play sports every single day, especially on a rainy spring like this. We would be, the phone would be, at this point in time, the phone would be ringing off the hook. You know, like, let's put it that way. If we didn't have the turf fields, the phone, you know, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, phone was ringing off the hook. You know, Dr. Dwayne was one of them. He would call and say, hey, you know, I got to get on the baseball field. Okay. So he just came to mind because you were talking about so that kind of, you know, those phone calls are pretty much starting to be non-existent because we have turf and we can go places. So baseball uses the water tower turf fields right now for practice, even though it's not a baseball field, you can use it because you're just on a surface, so to speak. As long as you protect where the balls are going, you're protected overall. You don't have anybody else out on the field with you. Yeah, Dave.
So a little while back, there was lots of discussion about the safety of the turf fields, what they're made of, you know, whether or not that was going to be, whether there was some sort of like health hazard, et cetera. Has that gone away? Has it become a better type of field, or?
I wouldn't say it's.
I thought the trend was going the other way to a certain extent.
Right.
Away from because I mean I know everybody here has to have like you know we have to be practicing you know every single day of the year. God forbid we have like one day off, but other than that, you know, is there a sort of health issue with that anymore?
So that's a great question. So we use it's called EPDM, which is probably the highest grade you could have, right? It's virgin rubber. So we've had that tested. We had the state come down and test it when this first came about, say 10 years ago or so, and we passed, you know, with flying colors. If you use a crumb rubber, which is recycled tires, you have a lot worse, you know, the ramifications are a lot worse, let's put it that way. St. Luke's is going through that right now as far as their process through P&Z and into the wetlands, you know, because their runoff is going directly into a wetland. So they're tackling those discussions right now, and they have some experts on both sides of the coin, right? So they got experts saying it's very, very bad. You got experts saying there's no harm, you know, at present. I can only tell you that from what we use, we try to use the highest standard, and therefore we've been passing. We haven't had an issue across the board. Are other municipalities starting to ban fields? Yes, they are. Some of our neighbors are banning turf fields. Either they're grandfathering in what's there and allowing those to either play out their useful life and then have to go back to grass, or continue with them, you know, forever as a turf field, but no new turf, if you will, right? Or changing their aspect. And there are other parts that you could other materials you could use, but they still have some problems. There's coconut fiber, things like that you could put in, but those have their own problems. They freeze during the winter. They have other issues as far as mold and other conditions that develop in the turf. You know, I can only tell you that what we've been using and the turf consultant that we've been using is kind of on the forefront of everything, and we're trying to stay ahead of that curve as far as safety goes. But that's also a discussion for the town fathers and for inland wetlands and P&Z, not necessarily for DPW.
What do you got then? If your cost for asphalt have gone and tripled over the last 20
Right.
years, how is it that your $2 million
That's a
a
great
year
question.
still does
And those are leading. I was waiting for John, but he knows all these things. Cause you know, John was always asking me every year, "What's our PCI?" So what we've been doing is we've been studying every other type of technique that's out there as far as pavement preservation, right? So there's a slew of them that are out there. So it usually used to start off as you paved it and then you forgot about it, and 20 years later, you would just reclaim it all and put it back in again. That's the most expensive method, okay? And that costs about $63, $65 a square yard, if you will, okay? Then there was the thought of, well, we can mill and pave it. You mill and pave it at some point in time where you take off the top 2 inches and you put back the asphalt. That's somewhere on the order of $22 a square yard. The thought being is that if we go out every 5 years and we crack seal, okay, that's $1 a square yard, okay? And then at 10 years, we put a micro thin overlay over it, which is your wearing course, which keeps all the water out of it and it allows the cars to travel well. That's $9 a square yard, okay? So I can put it, and then I can come back in 15 years for another $1 a square yard. Now I'm at $11 a square yard, and I've saved that road to be 20 years old. Because now if I don't touch it between now and 12 years old, at 12 years old, I gotta take it out and mill and pave it at 22, okay? So if I do these 3 measures at 11, I've saved myself half the cost, if you will. I can put that towards the rest of the roads that I have and save myself. And then at 20 years, I just have to mill and pave and not pay the $63, right? Which is 3 times the cost. Associated with that too is there's a technique called hot in place asphalt recycling, right? Which is basically they have a train of heaters, okay? Basically they heat up the pavement itself, scarify it, put it into a pug mill, okay? Rejuvenate it and pave it back out again. It's one long train that comes past your house. Problem is that it develops so much heat that it dehydrates the trees. So if you're in a canopy area, it dehydrates the trees, turns the trees all brown, you think they killed them. All it did was dehydrate them and make the leaves fall early. The tree will come back next year perfectly fine, but it's that thought process. That's another one. It's a savings of 40 to 50% on the dollar because the environmental aspects of not having to haul the material away and bring it back, it's all right there. We're just reusing our stuff, rejuvenating it. So that's another technique that we use. We also use what's called a Cape seal, which is a chip seal, which is oil and stone. Everybody's seen an oil and stone driveway. We will never chip seal in this town because they can't listen to the calls that come in. Even though we chip seal and then we put a micro thin overlay over the top of it, it costs 7 days to do that. We have to wait 7 days for the materials to work in. During that 7 days, the phone rings off the hook because everybody hears the ping, ping, ping on the bottom of their cars. That's why we'll never chip seal. So we have like, just wait 3 more days and it's gonna be covered or we'll be all set.
You don't mean
Yeah.
people in this town complain.
Right, not at all, not at all. If they didn't complain, I would be doing my job right, no, yeah. Well, yeah, I go away in July and that's when we start this technique, but yeah, it's also because you guys go away in July, that's why we do this technique, so. But seriously, actually our bid says that you'll start right after July 4th because we hope that everybody's going on vacation and half the people are driving. But that's another one that's $9 a square yard. And now we're looking at one more, which is called an ultra thin bonding wearing course and a SAMI, which are 2 different things, but they're virtually the same. An ultra thin bonding wearing course is the same type of thin overlay. It's got a high friction pavement to it. It's got rubber associated with it, rubber attached to it. And at that point in time, that's again around $10, $11. And all these get us about 10 years or 12 years worth of life and gets me through that last bit of hump, right? So I pave it, and then at 12 years, if I don't do anything, it ravels away. Raveling is when all the materials come out of the pavement, and then you can see it. If you go on, I got a couple of roads that are like that. So go on Laurel Road between Turner Hill and Canoe Hill, and you'll see what true raveling is, okay? And that road is right at the end of its useful life. It's done. I got to mill and pave it off. She's right at 20, okay? So she's got to come off and be done. And you'll see exactly what it is. If you ever want to know, you can go there and see exactly what it is and what happens to the pavement. But those are the way that we're able to kind of spread the dollar out, if you will, right? Is to stay away from the very, very expensive techniques and hit the road every 5 years. If I hit it every 5 years, then it'll just carry on forever.
Can you do my driveway?
We do come out and take a look if you want. We do come out and give consultancy.
Can I get, you talked about the sidewalk, you've got approval
Right.
for Bristow's, Old Stamford Road to the entrance
Right.
of Bristow, and I know that's a state road. I mean, will there be any kind of pull-off?
There is a pull-off.
I mean, where you could park a small school bus or something?
So thank you. So yeah, at Bristow, there'll be, at the termination of that portion of the sidewalk, there'll be a pull-off for 4 cars. One accessible space and 3 other cars. But it'll also accommodate a school bus, right? So the bus can come in, drop kids off, and then pull out, and then come back and pick them back up again. And that was the overall, and that'll actually be a pervious pavement. So we're actually pervious pavers. We went from pervious pavement to pervious pavers. Because of its proximity to Bristow, and Bristow's a large sink, a large wetland, so we wanted to make sure that the materials, the waters would be treated a little bit before it came into Bristow. But that's all part of that project. That's part of that design. That did have to go through state approval.
Sure.
We did quite well through that. It only took us a year. But now we're pretty much at that point. And then we're under design for Bristow to Gower. So a sidewalk from Bristow to Gower, we're looking at both sides of the street because we don't know which side we're going to be better on the outside of that curve or on the inside of that curve. I've got some residents that are for it. I've got residents that are against it. So we're designing both sides, similar to what we did for Main Street back in 2012. We designed both sides, and then the council decided what side of the street we're going to be on.
Now everybody loves it.
Now everybody loves it, right? Yeah. Main Street went to a referendum. It passed 52 to 48, and then and I had 5 residents who absolutely hated it, and 4 of the 5 love it. One of which walked on it the day it was done, and then said to me, I live right here on this corner. You need to put a sidewalk up here because this is the way I go to South Avenue. So there was a cell right there, and then the 5th resident, he moved out the moment that we opened it, but the day that he moved out, he put his house on the market, and he said that it was a flat property with sewer and water on a sidewalk within walkable distance of the downtown parks and schools. So that's what he said. He sold his property probably within a day. So while he was against it, I think he was for it. You know, what do you got, Scott?
So what do you have out there, next 5, 10 years? What are the big things on the docket?
Next 5 years. So thank you. I got a couple of not so pleasant things, and I got some good things. So we're trying to finish our sidewalk net. We're trying to finish the 2014 POCD. And if you haven't put in your opinion for the 2024 POCD, I would highly recommend going on and kind of filling out the survey and listening to what's going on, because that's the plan of conservation and development. It's going through planning and zoning right now. And if you don't say what you would like to see, or see how the town would be conserved or developed, I can't do my job, right? So it has to be in that document for me to be actually able to plan forward, to go forward with it. So we're trying to finish a couple of sidewalk segments that are there: Lakeview Avenue from Maine to Millport, Harrison Avenue, a stretch on White Oak Shade, and then this stretch on Old Stamford that we talked about. So those are sidewalks. Roads will take care of themselves. We're trying to take care of all of our smaller bridges. We've taken care of all of our larger bridges. So all of our bridges that have a larger span, say 20 feet or above, okay, those are in a different category than 20 feet or less. So we have both, right? So we've taken care of every single bridge that's 20 feet or above, and they're pretty much on their lifespan to last for 40 years or more. Oldest one that we have is 20 years old. I built that when I first got here, Dan's Highway. And then one on Valley over by the reservoir. Those two are the oldest that we have technically. And then the rest of them, anything under that 20-foot span of culvert, things of that nature, we're working our way through. So those are things that you don't necessarily see but are necessary, right? So the first one that we tackled, Lakeview Avenue, I'd ask you to try to find this culvert. You probably couldn't find this culvert, but it's just past Summer Street, and it's going to cost somewhere around $2 million. It's 128. I'll be right down 1 minute. And then the only other really big ticket item after we get done with the police department, all of our buildings are pretty much done. I got to start focusing over at the transfer station, because I've got 2 buildings at the transfer station, the old incinerator buildings, right? So I have the old incinerator building and the old incinerator building, right? So the first one from 1950 is still standing. That's the animal control building. And then I've got the other one where our salt shed is and where the swap shop is. And those necessarily have to be removed at some point in time, because they're just way past their useful life. And if they run into a problem, they fall on the highway department down below. So that's an unsavory one, because that's quite expensive, because it's an environmental cleanup, because it was an incinerator building. But those are the ones that are out there that we've been trying to then push off as long as we can to try to get rid of, the ones that everyone likes, say the police department, town hall, other buildings of that nature. Finish those and then concentrate on that. But that's the last one we got kind of out there. But thank you very much.
Great job.
That's how fast as possible.
Thank you so much.